Hi, and welcome to the Stress Less Summit. I'm your host, Eleni, and I've organized this summit because I believe the well-being of parents, teachers, and school leaders matters if we want our schools to be healthy, happy environments where IB diploma students can thrive. And today I'm talking with Dr. Sue Roffey, who is well-respected authority internationally on all aspects of school and well-being in schools. Dr. Roffey, lovely to have you here.
Thanks for inviting me. It's good to be here.
I know that you've recently published two books on the importance of environment in schools and the impact these have and how much that matters. So would you like to talk a bit about that, the importance of the quality of environment for learning?
Well, the books themselves are called the Primary and Secondary Behaviour Cookbooks. And what I've done in the first chapter is talk about the fact that whatever strategy you might have for behaviour, it's unlikely to work if it doesn't take place in a warm and caring environment and you do things for long enough. It's like putting cakes in a cold oven for 5 minutes and hoping that they'll cook. It just doesn't work. So the quality of a school environment is absolutely critical to well-being. And it's the well-being of students, certainly, but it's also for the well-being of teachers and everybody who's actually connected with the school.
What problems do you see in your work in schools with regards to quality of environment that connect to well-being for students and well-being for teachers?
Schools are very different, and you can often just pick up the quality of the environment just by walking through a school and sort of sitting and listening to people. It's there on their faces, it's there on what's on the walls, it's there in their conversations. And there are some schools, I'm sorry to say, which can be called toxic environments, where nobody pays attention to the culture of the school. And when that happens, people might just thrash about a bit, but nobody actually flourishes or thrives. It's like having an aquarium and not cleaning it out from time to time. The quality of the environment is very much demonstrated in what I call the micro moments, the little things, the little interactions that happen between people. Jane Dutton calls these high quality connections, and sometimes I just call them magic micro moments. And they are in the way people greet each other, the interest people have in each other, the way people are willing to accept or forgive mistakes that people make, being able to trust people to do things they say they will do. There's a whole load of things within a high quality relationship that's around really quite a lot of emotional literacy. Sometimes people say that emotions and relationships are a bit like the icing on the cake in educational environments. They're not, they're the cake. They're the things that everything else sort of spreads from. It's important to have knowledge and to deliver the curriculum, but how you do that and how you run a school and the vision and the values of a school matter enormously for everybody's well-being.
Are there any other problems that you see in international schools specifically?
I think it's true in a number of schools that where every school wants to be seen as a hub of excellence, it wants to produce really good academic outcomes, and there's nothing wrong with that. And some people see a focus on well-being as an opposite to academic excellence. And my argument is you focus on well-being as a central core of your school, then you will get better academic outcomes for everybody because students will be more engaged. One of the big issues for a number of schools where parents pay for their children to go to those schools is that they expect their children to be better than everybody else. We can't have everybody in a school better than everybody else in a school. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah. So schools need to be looking at how do they develop the maximum potential for each person, that they focus on the strengths that they have and they help them to develop those rather than always being in competition with somebody else. You can't have a competition where everybody is the winner. And if you get students who constantly feel that they're a loser in high academic schools, then that impacts very much on their well-being. The other thing that impacts on well-being is when students are so hot-housed that they don't have time to develop other aspects of themselves. And sometimes their mental health is really at risk when that happens. And that we know that there are some students who go on to universities and without that massive amount of support and backing, they're unable to stand independently on their own feet. So one of the things that I use in the work that I do across a number of different scenarios are the ASPIRE principles, which stand for A is for agency, which means that you don't always tell young people what to do. It's not didactic. You ask them good questions and you enable them in some ways to take responsibility for their learning and for themselves. And S is for safety. Everybody needs to feel safe in a school. That's physically, psychologically, and emotionally. And in a school where one can't admit to mistakes or when it's important to be perfect, that's a lot of problems for some kids. And we know that there's quite a lot of students around at the moment whose aim is for perfection. They need to be seen to be the best at everything. And it's unachievable. And therefore it can lead to some really bad feelings and guilt and huge pressure. The P is for positivity, which is actually having a strengths and solution focused way of approaching all issues. So rather than talk about what's going wrong all the time and thinking, well, where do I need to go and what's the next step for me? And the other part of that is positive emotions. Barbara Fredrickson talks about the fact that if you have negative emotions that are overwhelming for you, it's quite hard to focus on learning. You can imagine that if you were going to school and you saw a car crash on your way to school and you get to school and people ignore the fact that you're in a bit of a state and say, finish that maths paper, your ability to concentrate is going to be pretty weak, really. So what we do under P for positivity is promote as many of the positive emotions as we can. Not necessarily, how can I say, shallow emotions, but sort of deep emotions. So you're conscious of the fact that these things have meaning for you in some way, because we know that having meaning in life is connected very much to authentic well-being. And in fact, teachers are in a good place because what they do every day is a meaningful occupation, especially if they're allowed to be a bit creative and flexible within it. And laughter. Play and laughter is quite often not seen as something that should necessarily be part of everyday life in schools, when in fact the research that has been done with children say that school is so much better a learning environment for them when teachers can have a bit of a joke and not everything is super, super serious all the time. So those things are important. I is for inclusion. And we know that a sense of belonging is critical to resilience and well-being, feeling that you belong there. And belonging isn't necessarily in a uniform, or in cheering the football team. It's actually about how you feel about being at school, whether you feel that you are making progress and people there care about you and your life, not only your life in school, but maybe the things you're bringing from outside school. R is for respect. Bit of an old-fashioned word, I guess, these days, but I think being respectful to people means taking account of their circumstances, listening to them without judging, and not making those judgments until you know a bit about people's stories. And I've seen, unfortunately, some quite disrespectful behaviours in some schools, both to students and to parents sometimes as well. Like, a simple idea is when you have a meeting with a parent, you check with them that the timing of that meeting fits in with what's possible for them. So you don't say, I want to see you at 11, and they have to take half a day off work maybe, and that the meetings start on time and that people don't answer the phone during the meetings. I think people paying attention to other devices when they're supposed to be listening to somebody is deeply disrespectful. And getting students to talk about what that means for them. And the last is equity. And equity, I changed equality to equity, because equality is a bit like having everybody the same. And equity means everybody having an equal chance. It's about fairness, and it's about being flexible when you need to be flexible. And I think those are really good set of principles to promote well-being in a school. And they're the principles that also underpin the social and emotional learning that I do, which is called Circle Solutions. I think it's something that should be a part of school all the way through school, right from little children all the way through to adults, in fact. I mean, sometimes the only time we give attention to relationships is when they go pear-shaped. And so people take themselves off to counselling rather than actually learning what's involved in good communication, what's involved in a trusting, healthy, safe, warm relationship. How do you do that? And what's the difference for teachers between role and relationship? And how do they manage that? And I think that those sorts of things are important to discuss. Circle solutions can happen. Basically, for me, it's a tool for well-being. It can be something that happens for 20 minutes, once or twice a week, where students do things together and talk together about issues, not about incidents, but about issues that are important for them in a depersonalised way, so it's safe. And then during the school day, there are times when the things that they've learnt in circles can be applied. And if teachers are doing circles with the students, which is the model that I use, then they will also learn a bit more about their students and be able to respond to them more effectively and appropriately when needed.
I'm thinking of, some objections that someone might say when they're thinking, as a school leader, IB coordinator, or a teacher, we've already got so much content we have to cover for the IB diploma. We don't have time to add in more. What would you say to that?
It's an argument I've heard many, many times. Teachers will often say to me, we need more time. Time is finite. There is no such thing as more time, right? Yeah. So what's important is how you prioritize your time. And sometimes the things that you will do in that 20 minutes will save time at other times. It's a bit like looking at the urgent and the important. And what happens a lot of the time is that we constantly pay attention to the urgent, and then the important gets left. And then it comes back to bite you on the bum, because if you don't pay attention to the important, then it has a way of becoming very urgent. So I think that it's about looking at where you can fit things in that I think are going to be important across the board. And you can discuss things in circles like students talking together about how they organise their time, or what they do about the dreaded procrastination, and a whole range of other things, like what do they do when they get very anxious. We know that we have students who are super duper anxious about how they're seen by other people, how they achieve, the marks that they get, etc. It's important that students, for their well-being, feel positive about themselves, who they're becoming, and the world that they're in. And if we don't do that, then we're undermining mental health for people. And that seems to me to be a big mistake.
So is there anything else that you'd like to add before you wrap up?
Although getting high scores opens doors for people, there are a lot of people who have done really well in life without getting high scores. We need to rethink our definition about what success means and what success means in life, and enable our young people to live a life in which they can contribute, relate well, and actually get some of the benefits of the bigger picture of being alive, rather than just focused on status, success, and stuff.
Dr. Roffey, thank you so much for your insights, the principles you shared, and taking the time to really help us question these, all the day-to-day that we sometimes get caught up in, and what really matters in education.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. It's worth saying that everything that I talk about is based in evidence. I'm not just picking ideology out of the air.
Thank you, and thank you to you at home who's watching this, and you can click on the link below to find out more about Dr. Roffey and her research. She's written loads and loads of books. Definitely check out her last 2 books as well. Thank you very much. Take care. Until the next time.